And welcome back here to F3, the FreightWaves TV stage here in the exhibit hall. We have an entire hallway of exhibitors and demo companies, around 50 in total that have been doing demos the last couple days. That will continue into day 3. My name's Kevin Hill here with FreightWaves, joined by a special guest, Renee Krug from Transflo CEO over there, and we're going to talk about automation and hyper automation as well, and how you can drive profitability and increase employee engagement, right? So those are some of the topics we'll be talking about, and I'd like Renee to kind of do an introduction of herself and her role and you know, how Transflo is going right now.
Hey, thank you, Kevin. Nice to meet everybody out there. Hopefully you can hear me. Thumbs up on the mic. You guys can hear? All right, great. So, as Kevin mentioned, CEO of Transflo. I joined the company in April of this year, but I have a long history of being in the logistics industry. I actually started my career at Honeywell and did all kinds of things there in the technology team, Six Sigma, process improvement, actually trained on the receiving dock for the ERP systems I implemented. From there, I moved to Swift Transportation, the largest truckload carrier, and did all kinds of process improvements there. Again, I managed back office accounting, I managed driver, payroll, owner-operator settlements, and did the whole workflow imaging, waste station bypass, all those different things for our drivers, permits, citations, licenses. And from there I moved to Global Trans, and Global Trans, as you guys know, a top 10 broker, joined the company early on when they were 300 million, fast growing, and helped drive them to over 2 billion. So then received the call from Transflo to come over and do some work with these guys. So I couldn't be more excited because it engages everything I love, which is technology, process improvement, high automation. I've sat in the seat of the broker and the carriers and the shippers, so I understand what's needed and how we can drive value and improvements through our company.
Yeah, so it's safe to say you have a long background in process improvement and automation from different organizations.
Yeah, for sure, and that's part of the excitement for me about Transflo. So let me give just a quick, for those of you who don't know Transflo, you should. So Transflo is a 30-year company in the technology business, and it's profitable. So that's in vogue now, so very excited about that part, to have a profitable technology company. And we are huge in this space. We have 119 billion worth of spend that runs through our network. We have 3.2 million downloads of our app, 800,000 active drivers, 65,000 fleets in our network. And we run the gamut, end-to-end solutions, and I know everyone says that, so let me just add a little more color to that. So we do anything from the front-end mobile telematics, where we're actually dispatching the truck. We're partnered with a lot on the ELD, waste station bypass, cameras, all of those products run as part of our front-end solution. And then we're able to capture and automate the back end, which is all the digitizing of the paperwork and bringing all of that data into the ecosystem to help get carriers paid faster and to help bill customers faster, which is really important in our business.
It is very important in our business, essential in our business. So Renee, that's a good intro to automation. That's what we're going to be talking about today. But you know, automation to drive efficiencies, right? And certain type of efficiencies are always, yeah, let's just say certain type of efficiencies are always optimal, right? And part of that is putting employees in the right place to succeed.
Yeah, so on that note, you guys know this has been a great run in the brokerage world and the carrier world. The last couple of years have just been pretty amazing, and so now we're all coming up against those tougher comps, and the market, as you guys know, has slowed down a little bit. So this time more than ever is really important for you to be thinking about automation and how you might automate some of those processes. So this is how you can really save money, bill faster. We know these businesses are lower margin businesses, typically in the broker world and the carrier world, you're sub 10%, sub 5%. So the ability to bill your customers faster and collect cash flow faster, that's really important for what we do. It's also important to have those carrier relationships and carrier partners. You want to be able to pay them quicker. So some of the automation and efficiencies that we bring to the back office is, we're collecting those digital invoices. We have multiple ways we can take that data in. We can take it through our mobile app that's running in all those trucks. We can take it in through email. We can open up the system automatically opens the inbox, extracts the data, brings all of that invoice information in. Truck stop scanning, you'd be surprised. So a lot of companies are still using that. So we have all those abilities to bring that data in and make it part of the ecosystem. So then we're extracting that data out and bringing that in, matching it against your TMS, McLeod, Mercurgate, your proprietary systems, Mastery, any of those. We're matching against that TMS, and all you're doing is touching the exceptions. So we're lights out processing. We're automating all of those invoices, and all that the carrier or the broker or the factor needs to do is touch exceptions where a price may not match, or an invoice is off for an accessorial, or you're missing a POD, which is critical in this industry.
Yes, those PODs are very critical because no one gets paid without those PODs. So let's talk about automation and how that's grown over. Let's go to the Gartner study. I think that's where we need to go. The Gartner study, and you have the facts and figures on the rise of automation, hyper automation, because I know I got into the industry about 10 years ago. You had fax machines, you had employees who were printing or taking invoices off fax machines, entering that in, then trying to collect, and it was a very manual process, right? But over the last 10 years, that has changed dramatically, and some of the figures from the Gartner survey or study really highlight that.
So the Gartner study that was just released, there's in 2020, 480 billion with a B was spent on hyper automation, and that is growing in 2022 to 600 billion. So this, if you're a carrier, a broker, your factor company, just to be on an even playing field and up your game, you really need to drive this automation. So what you're doing is you're digitizing, you're expediting everything in your back-end process. So with automating those processes, now you've freed up headcount, you've eliminated the need for that because it's all coming through the network automatically. So you can reallocate those resources to something that's more revenue generated. You can put it in technology. That's a big part of everything that needs to be done today in the back offices. You could put it into customer success, customer service. All of those things are so important, but that automation is really key. The other thing to think about, if you think about how this world has changed over the past 10 years or so, brokers are growing rapidly because they're filling that niche of being able to go anywhere, and they're dealing with a lot of little carriers that are out there everywhere. Getting them paid faster is really important. Also on the factor side, if anybody who's been in the business for a while, you guys remember factors have really grown rapidly over the last couple of years. And so we do work with factors, we do work with carriers, with brokers, and we do that verification process now between the factor and the broker. 50 to 75% of a broker's payables is now paid to a factor, not directly to that carrier. So it's really interesting, the dynamics of how much has changed in this industry in the past couple of years. So
yeah, there's an interesting stat for brokers when 3PLs are paying to factoring instead of directly to carriers. You highlighted a little bit, and this is how I always think anyway, and automation flows into this, is you want your employees doing revenue producing activities. You want to eliminate employees doing non-revenue producing activities, because you have error, you have disengagement. We were talking about this yesterday. You have a whole host of problems, and the labor market is so tight right now that it's tough with the turnover. Those are some of the indirect costs, of course, but I think we can all agree that if we have someone coming in working, we want them working on revenue producing activities.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about a couple years ago, it was the Great Resignation. Everybody was leaving, and some of these jobs are fairly routine and mundane. So you had the Great Resignation. It was super hard to get anybody to fill these roles. So then when you are bringing in people, it's error prone because, sitting there and keying data and information, that's just, ripe for having lots of errors and issues. So now, fast forward a couple of years, and people are starting to come back more into the workforce. However, they're 20 to 30% more than what you guys paid, or more. You guys have, there's not anyone out there that's not feeling the escalation of the wages. So our ability to come in and automate 100% of that, or I should never say 100%, we're in the high 90s in terms of automating those processes, getting those invoices in there, and now you're only dealing with the exception side is a big deal because you can, as Kevin mentioned, you're really now able to allocate those resources to different places that your business needs. And if you think, I came up the finance route, and certainly when I think about, you've got your revenue and then your gross margin, and then you have all your costs below that, you really need to minimize as much of that cost as you can and get as much of your labor, your team, and expenses focused on revenue producing.
You really do, because if you're a freight broker in the seat, especially, you're going to make that $300 margin, that $400 margin, but at the end of the day, it's not $400. To the business, it's much lower than that. It could be $50 or $100 the more you automate. And I think the more you get rid of indirect costs that are hard to quantify, and part of that is turnover, right? Because if you're employing people to do, let's say, boring tasks, the turnover is going to be higher, the training costs are going to be higher. If you can automate that, then at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, that automation is working for you.
Yeah, that's so true. 24/7, the systems are running. They're not taking vacations. No issues with that. The systems are just driving and automating all of that data. That is such a win for the company. And then that all the information, we're able, with our newest hyper-automation softwares, we've invested millions in the last couple of years in the software, and we have all kinds of new releases out last year, out this year, and all of that software can capture a whole lot more information than it used to. So it used to be, that you're looking at invoice number, invoice date, and amount. It is so beyond that now. We can capture lane data, accessorials, really anything on the invoice with the latest technology that we have, which is truly leapfrogging everybody else. It's really able to extract and pull off so much information that you could use that analytics, that data to look at your trends in the business, what's happening with carriers, what's happening with rates. There's just so much information you could use, and I think that's another big reason to be doing automation, because that automation is really driving so much value in the business. You shouldn't just be thinking about getting an invoice in the system and getting it paid. You need to be thinking about the data and what you can do with that and all the analytics and metrics that it can provide back into your business.
It starts with that plan for automation. You have to have a very clear, concise plan of your objectives, and then you can fit it in. Final question here. What does 2023 look like for Transflo?
We are super excited. As you guys know, we have a lot of new faces in our team. We brought in some hyper talent. So you're going to see all kinds of new releases of our products, both on the telematics, on the front end side. We're doing some really great things. In fact, I see a few of those great faces out there in the crowd. But we're also doing so much more with our back-end automation, our workflow automation. That is the name of the game for us, that hyper automation, helping our partners, helping our carriers, helping our factor companies, and helping our brokers every way we can. But you'll see a lot from Transflo in 2023.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Thanks to everyone who came out to F3, our audience here. Let's get a round of applause for Renee.
Thank you, everyone.
This is a halfway point, really, of the conference. We have tonight, we have tomorrow, Freight Tech 100. The top 25 will be announced I think at 8:45 up on the main stage, our founder and CEO, Craig Fuller, will be presenting that.